Prediction Princess is one of many archetypes in the game that has potential, but will never achieve it on its own, due to a lack of support and no reason to suspect new support in the future. Fortunately, Prediction Princess does have some nice hybridization options, allowing it to field a potentially competitive product. So what does my Prediction Princess deck look like? Starting off with the scant direct support already available for Prediction Princess, Crystaldyne might have had some purpose, albeit an inefficient one, due to its ability to recover ritual monsters from the graveyard before Pre-Preparation of Rites was released. But now, with the existence of Pre-Prep, Crystaldyne is basically worthless. Aerosylph still has some value due to its ritual spell recovery from the graveyard, and unlike Crystaldyne, is not burdened by requiring a tribute to set it. But it is still rather slow, and with no strong combo potential in this deck, it's just not worth it. It would have been nice if Aerosylph had some additional effect, maybe similar to a Jin monster where you could banish it from the graveyard as part of the cost for a ritual summon. Astro Morrigan is not a bad card, it's just not good. It's rather slow, and it requires a specific deck to optimize its effect. In a lot of respects, this card plus lose one turn, plus Tarotrei, has strong combination potential before all of the opponent turn interrupters became so prevalent. With the ability of Prediction Ritual to search it, one copy is not a bad idea, but it's just not a path I choose to take. Koinerma is a quality card, but in this day and age of Yu-Gi-Oh!, flip effects without a means to force their activation or without a kind of quasi-game-breaking effect are low quality early game. Koinerma could have been worth it if it did not have the condition of restricting the flip effect of any non-Prediction Princess monsters it summoned, but unfortunately, it does. Make no mistake, Koinerma is not a bad card, I just think there are better cards for this deck. If Petalelp flipped the opponent's monsters face down, rather than just switched them to defense position, then it would have been a very nice card. Unfortunately, this is not the case. If Prediction Princess had some archetype revival card that was better than the generic stuff, then this card could see some potential combination with the ability of Astro Morrigan, but unfortunately there's just not enough combo efficiency to run this card. It's not worth the deck space. Tarotrei is one of the star cards of this archetype, as the monster version of Book of Moon and Book of Taoh that can be activated once per turn during either player's turn, with a solid 2700 attack points to boot. Also, the ability to special summon a flip effect monster from your graveyard or hand during your end phase makes it rather effective at producing solid advantage and field control. Even by itself, when you don't have a good flip effect monster to summon from your hand or graveyard, its Book of Moon ability can effectively neutralize a lot of your opponent's playmaking capacity. The only real negative of Tarotrei is it's a level 9 instead of a level 8, making its summons a little more difficult and awkward. However, because the deck is basically built around the advantage this card can produce, I run the obvious 3 copies. 3 copies of Tarotrei demands 3 copies of Prediction Ritual. Prediction Ritual has a banish from the graveyard effect that will probably never be fully effective because of the lack of quality Prediction Princess monsters. However, this search effect does allow for the addition of another Tarotrei from the deck to either be ritual summoned with a second Prediction Ritual, or to be used as cost for a ritual summons. It could have been nice to have Graveyard Prediction Princess recovery with this card over just the search effect, though. Black Catastrophe could have been a great support card for flip decks, but was not effectively designed in my opinion. Avoiding the battle phase is hardly the big problem for a lot of flip decks, especially in the modern era of Yu-Gi-Oh! And also because there's just a bunch of other high-quality battle negators out there. This card should have forced the immediate end to the opponent's main phase 1, not battle phase, thus forcing them to make all the plays they wanted to make during their main phase 2. The banish from the graveyard effect would have been nice if, once again, the Prediction Princess monsters were actually worth running. If Prediction Princess ever receives more quality monster support, then this card could be an interesting addition, but right now, it's just not worth it. So, with only the ritual monster and its associated spell card in the deck, there's a lot of space to fill. While it is possible to build this deck using generic flip effect monsters and support, or even sub-terror support, the fact of the matter is that right now, sub-terrors are not that good, and the generic flip effect strategy is typically too slow and inefficient. Overall, the best hybrid for Tarotrei is one that has been seen many times in the past, Shaddolls. Shaddolls make a nice hybrid choice due to the fact that they are also primarily a flip effect deck that will receive quality effects when sent to the graveyard by card effects, which includes the use of its ritual summon, and in the modern environment as it stands with regards to extra deck summoning, Shaddoll Fusion is always a quality card. So I run the following for the Shaddoll portion of the deck. First, 3 copies of Beast, because it works very well with a solid graveyard and flip effects that help manage resource costs associated with the summons of Tarotrei. Send it to the graveyard and get a draw, or flip it face up and +1 with its mini Graceful Charity effect. Also, a passive benefit is its level 5 standing, making bridging the level 9 ritual requirement a lot easier. I run 2 copies of Squamata for on-field destruction and graveyard versatility, 2 copies of Falco for field control and recursion, along with 1 copy of Hedgehog and 1 copy of Dragon for searching and back row removal. Also, I run 2 copies of Shaddoll Fusion to aid graveyard manipulation and field control. I don't run 3 copies because of clogging, for this deck does have higher bricking potential than most decks. For the remaining monsters, it is not surprising that I run 2 copies of Pot of the Forbidden, for it is probably the best flip effect monster in the game, and can generate a nice level of field control due to the Forceful Sentry similar effect, in addition to producing advantage via its Raigeki or Pot of Greed effect. Even less surprising, seeing that this is a ritual deck, I run the 3 copies of Manju of the 10,000 Hands. I run 2 copies of Spirit of the Fallwind, for it produces a nice +1 search when normal summoned, especially for adding Pot of the Forbidden to the hand. 2 copies of SPYRAL Super Agent, which I feel should be kind of a staple in ritual decks that have this allotted space. For the deck information, the back row destruction, and the potential free special summons are all very useful. 1 copy of Trick Clown for field presence and ritual use advantage, and 2 copies of Plaguespreader Zombie for synchro playmaking. The simple fact is, Plaguespreader, in my opinion, really takes this deck to the next level with the synchro plays that you can make, not having to rely on Tarotrei or hoping that you draw that Shaddoll Fusion. For the remaining spells, not surprisingly, I run 3 copies of Pre-Preparation of Rites, 1 copy of Allure of Darkness, 1 copy of Foolish Burial for better graveyard control, 1 copy of Raigeki, and 2 copies of Book of Eclipse for defense and more effective manipulation of the flip effects. Finally, for the traps, I run 1 copy of Vanity's Emptiness, for Tarotrei can generally shut down threat from opponent normal summoning, and 2 copies of Burst Rebirth, for while the life point payment is a bit steep, the ability to revive a Pot of the Forbidden during the opponent's end phase to flip it during your turn can be life-saving at times. For the extra deck, I run 2 copies of Shaddoll Shekhinaga, 2 copies of Shaddoll Winda, 1 Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, 1 Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, 1 Clear Wing Synchro Dragon, 1 Black Rose Moonlight Dragon, 1 Ancient Pixie Dragon. The only reason I run this is to use it as a bridge with Plaguespreader to go into Hot Red, 1 Stardust Charge Warrior. Right now I run 1 Goyo Guardian, but if Goyo Guardian, the TCG, gets the same errata treatment that it got in the OCG, I'm not exactly sure if that's already happened, then I would probably run 1 Red Wyvern instead, because I don't like the resource expenditure that Coral Dragon costs for this particular deck. 1 number 81 Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Super Dora. You make this by when you have both Shekhinagas on the field, which is not that rare of an event thanks to Falco, and the Shekhinaga when it goes to the graveyard, adding the Shaddoll Fusion from the graveyard back to your hand. 1 number S39 Utopia the Lightning, 1 number 39 Utopia, and 1 Castel the Skyblaster Musketeer. Overall, this deck can actually be rather competitive because of the control factor provided by the nice mixture and balance of Tarotrei, Pot of the Forbidden, the Shaddoll portion of the deck, and the Plaguespreaders. Obviously, the biggest problem this deck faces right now are back row heavy decks that can effectively interfere with Tarotrei's effect. However, if the opponent cannot immediately address Tarotrei, then the opponent will have significant problems due to the advantage that it can generate through its summons effect, and the field control it can produce through its Book of Moon effect, especially in combination with Pot of the Forbidden. Well, that is my Tarotrei deck. Thank you for your attention and your time. I'm out.